Let's take a look at some of the other features that are available in the Accounts Receivable menu, beginning with debit and credit memos. A debit memo indicates that a customer owes you additional money. A credit memo indicates that you owe the customer some amount of money because of a return or damaged product or any number of other reasons. Again, with the debit and credit memos, you can add or delete a memo. You can apply a memo to a current invoice, which adjusts the total of the amount due on that invoice based on the memo that you apply. And then you have some printing and viewing options. Let's take a look at the process of adding a credit memo. First, you'll need to select the customer that you're granting this memo to. Enter the date and the invoice number. The invoice number is an optional field, but can be used to help you track the reason that a credit memo was given. Next, you would enter the sales tax total. The sales tax total represents the taxable portion of the money that you're crediting back to the customer or debiting to the customer. The reason for this is because that money has to be appropriately tallied when you're calculating the tax payments that you need to make to send to the federal government. So any taxable portion of that would be entered here. The memo type then is either a debit memo or a credit memo. You'd specify that here. Again, a credit memo indicating that you owe the customer money, and a debit memo indicating that he owes you additional money. Then we come to the line items. The line items are where we specify the total amount of the memo. We can put as many line items as we need to. There are two ways to enter line items. One is to key in an actual product. Assuming that we're issuing them a credit because of a problem with a product, we can put that product in. It will automatically pull up the cost, allow us to specify how many of these are being returned, and that will give us a total minus the taxable amount. Next, perhaps we're issuing a credit memo or a debit memo that's not tied to any specific product or for any specific reason, in which case we can key in whatever information we want. If we key in an item into the product field that is not recognized, the software will warn us that this is not a valid product but allow us to continue. In this way, we can put in whatever information we want on our credit memo and specify whatever amount we want. When we're finished, we can press F3. We also have the option of adding a new line using F7, deleting a line from the credit memo using F9, or aborting the credit memo using F10. Let's go ahead and save this memo. And it will ask if we want to print the memo. The printed memo allows us to send a copy of that to our customer so that they're aware of the memo that they've received. If we decide that we don't want to issue that memo, as long as it has not been applied, we can delete the memo. The next step then would be to apply a memo or to reprint the memo. Let's take a look at the reprint. It simply allows us to pick a specific memo that we want to print, and then we can view that. Let's look at the process of applying a memo. When we apply a memo is used to adjust the amount that needs to be paid on any specific invoice. So to apply a memo, first we would select the memo from the list, and then we'll be asked, we already know which account it's going to be applied against because that's coded in the memo, but it'll ask us next which invoice we want to apply that against. And we can specify an invoice to apply that memo to. We enter a posting date. The software automatically posts to our accounts receivable account and our sales returns account, and then we're finished. Credit memos can also be applied while we're in the process of receiving a payment. If you have outstanding payments that are available, you'll be able to select, once you're in the line items, the option to apply a credit memo to that specific invoice. Let's go back into the credit memo option and look at some of these other options that we have. We can print a report. The credit memo report will show us all of the current memos that have not been applied and posted. We also have the option to print a history, which would show us for a date range, all of the credit memos which have been applied against any invoices. And we can view the memo history. We can also view deleted memos so that we'll know if a memo has been deleted, we can understand why. Finally, if a memo is not applied and needs to be removed from the system, we can refund that memo here. This forces the accounting to be done properly and allows us to actually issue a check for the credit memo. Credit memos can also be created in several other places in the software. For example, in the customer orders module when returning product or overpaying accounts receivable paid invoices, the software will automatically, in some instances, offer to create a credit memo. Those credit memos are identical to the credit memos created here, can be applied and tracked in the same fashion.